There is a kind of pain that does not appear on exams, does not translate into tears nor scream. It is a silent, subtle pain that settles like a background noise in life. The feeling that nothing makes sense. You wake up, live, do tasks, maybe even smile, but deep down something is out of place. The feeling that something is missing, that everything is empty. Viktor Frankl called it an existential vacuum, a phenomenon that especially reaches modern human being, surrounded by technology, information, comfort, and yet empty. Because it is not the lack of stimulus that destroys us, it is the lack of meaning. Life runs, and we run together. But where do you run? From an early age, they teach us what to achieve, but almost never what it means to live. We learn to hit goals, build reputations, then scripts, but it does not learn to hear the inner silence, asking, why am I doing this? Existential emptiness is not freshness. It is a symptom. It is the sign that something deep is asking to be looked at. It's the soul saying, I don't just want to survive. Frankl lived in the hell of Auschwitz, and from there it came out with a certainty. What kills is not pain, it is the absence of purpose. Because even in the worst darkness, the human being can still resist if he knows why. But without that, any obstacle becomes unbearable. Meaningless, even success loses taste. And perhaps this is the great drama of our generation. We are well-dressed, well-fed, well-connected, but deeply lost. Existential emptiness is not the end. It's the beginning of a search that you may have avoided for fear, but that, embraced with courage, can lead you to a more entire life, not easier, but more true. There is a deep difference between pain and suffering. The pain is inevitable. It is part of human experience. It comes when we lose someone, when something escapes us, when life pushes us against the wall. But suffering, this is born when the pain extends. Meaningless. It is empty pain, the pain that leads nowhere. This is where the soul begins to define. Viktor Frankl, as he passed the horrors of concentration camps, realized something that would change forever psychology. People who survived extreme pain were not necessarily the most physically strong, nor the most emotionally resistant. They were those who, even in misery, could still see a why to continue. He saw mothers share the last piece of bread with strangers. He saw men die singing. He saw people resist the absurd with a spark of dignity. And he understood, the pain does not destroy. What destroys is the lack of meaning. Frankl said, the pain is no longer suffering the moment we find a meaning for her. This does not mean romanticizing suffering. It is not to say that every pain is beautiful, or that we should seek it as a form of elevation, but that if the pain has come, and it comes to everyone, the most transformative question we can ask is not, why did this happen to me? But yes, what can I do with it? This turn of consciousness is brutal, because it requires you to get out of the role of victim. It requires you to face suffering not as a punishment, but as a call. And that changes everything, because suddenly, that loss that broke you begins to reveal a new part of you. That crisis that looked like an end becomes a portal, and the chaos that seemed random has direction contours. But beware, finding meaning is not to invent any narrative to pretend it is. Okay, it is allowing yourself to get into pain deeply and hear what she has to say. It's asking yourself with brutal courage, what is this asking me to transform? Frankl said that suffering only becomes unbearable when we could not give him an answer, and that sometimes this answer is not in understanding, but in posture. There are pains that you will not be able to explain, but you can choose how you will cross them, with anger or with purpose, with resistance or with delivery, with self-pity or with dignity. This is the key. The pain doesn't have to be beautiful, but it can be fertile, if you are willing to listen. Imagine being surrounded by pain, humiliation, hunger, fear, cold. Imagine not know if you will see the next sunrise. This was Viktor Frankl's daily life in the Nazi concentration camps, and yet he wrote, Everything can be taken from a man except one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose his attitude to any circumstance. This is not theory, it is experienced experience. Frankl saw human cruelty in its most brutal form, and he realized that even there, in the midst of hell, some could maintain a kind of silent dignity. Some chose to divide the bread, others keep the posture. Some, they could still love, not because they were stronger, but because they understood a truth that few see. You always have a choice. Not the choice of what will happen, but about who you will be in front of it. Frankl called it existential responsibility. That is, you are not free just to do what you want. You are free to respond to what life gives you, and it is exactly in this space, between the stimulus and the answer, that lives its freedom. This is where you choose if it will repeat patterns, or break them, if you are going to appeal, or expand. This freedom is scary, because she takes all the excuses out of the scene. It puts you in the face of naked truth. You do not control what happens, but you can always control your answer. This is not indifference, it is inner force. It is the courage to take the protagonism, even bleeding inside. Frankl said that even in the midst of chaos, life expects something from you, and this question changes everything. What is life asking for me now? This change of focus, from what I want to what life asks, is the beginning of a life with purpose. A life where you are no longer spectator and becomes author, even on the darkest pages in its history. Because when everything seems meaningless, perhaps it is time to choose to make sense with what you have the way you can, even if everything around you shouts that it's useless. And that's where you find out. The meaning is not something that is found, it is something that is built. In a world where everything screams for productivity, performance, and perfection, the soul shouts in silence by meaning. Viktor Frankl identified this as one of the greatest pains of our time, the existential void. It is not depression. It is not boredom. It's that inner hole you feel even when you are surrounded by people, even when apparently everything, employment, relationship, stability, and yet, at night, give a knot in the chest, because something is missing, but you don't know exactly what. Frankl said that this void is not a defect, it is a sign, a warning that you have distanced yourself from who you really are, that you are living from outside, not from the inside out. He observed that many of the modern symptoms, anxiety, compulsions, addictions, apathy, they are not diseases itself but manifestations of a hunger on purpose, a soul with a sense of meaning. And the tragedy is that we often seek to fill this void with distraction, more work, more food, more shopping, more dopamine. But the more we try to anesthetize, but the emptiness grows. Frankl said that the only thing that can fill this space is not the pleasure, it's not success, it is the purpose. The will of meaning is, for him, the most powerful force of human existence, more powerful than Freud's desire for pleasure, stronger than Nietzsche's will for power. It is the desire to know why keep living, even when everything seems to crumble. And this sense does not come from ready-made formulas. It is not in the self-help books. It is in real life, in the way you respond to pain, the way you love, even broken, in the choice you make, even in doubt, in the presence you offer, even tired. Frankl said that the meaning is unique, personal, and non-transferable. There is no generic truth that serves to everyone. Each life has its own call, and your mission is to listen. So when everything seems meaningless, maybe it's time to stop, silence, and ask the most important question: what is this trying to teach me? Because sometimes the emptiness, it's just the space being opened for something bigger to enter. Viktor Frankl said, if there is a meaning in life, then there must be a meaning also in suffering. This phrase is like a punch to those who are injured, because everything inside us wants to resist pain, escape it, anesthetize it. But what if the pain has something to say? What if she's an invitation, not a punishment? Frankl learned this in the most unlikely place, the concentration camp. There he saw men die inside before they died outside, and also saw others, even malnourished, without family, barefoot in the snow, still helping others to get up, still whispering words of hope. He understood that suffering, no matter how absurd as it may seem, it can become a mission, as long as it is not wasted. Suffering forces us to stop. It forces us to look inside, to abandon illusions, discovering forces that we would never know that they existed if all was well. But it is not an automatic process. The pain only becomes wisdom when it is crossed with conscience, with courage, with presence. Frankl called it transcendence in suffering. It is not romanticize the pain, it is giving her a place, is to ask with humility, what can I do with it? Sometimes the answer is simple and deep. You can turn your pain into a bridge, its fall in fertile soil, its history and balm to another wounded soul. This is why so many who suffered deeply became headlights, because they let the pain go through them, and they didn't just become the echo of what they lived. Frankl believed that human beings cannot prevent inevitable suffering, but you can choose how to handle it. And it is in this choice that is the greatness. The moment you choose to face pain with dignity, you start to turn the absurd into response, the tear in seed, the wound in force, because in the end, what defines the human being is not what he suffers, but what he does with what he suffered. Viktor Frankl reminds us that between stimulus and answer, there is a space, and in this space is our power of choice, our inner freedom. Even in the concentration camp, where everything was taken from it, freedom, family, dignity, name, Frankl said that a freedom was still left, to choose his attitude towards suffering. This view is revolutionary, because it gives us something that the modern world seems to have lost: existential responsibility, not responsibility as guilt, but as an answer, the answer you give to pain, to the loss, to frustration, to injustice. Frankl said that freedom without responsibility is empty, and therefore suggested that alongside the Statue of Liberty in the United States, there should be a statue of responsibility across the country, because the true meaning of life is not doing whatever you want, but in doing what is needed, even when it is difficult, even when it hurts, even when no one is looking. This is called to existential maturity. Assume the protagonism of history itself. Stop outsourcing the pain. Stop always blaming others, the past, society, the government, the parents. Because yes, we all carry wounds, but what you do with them, it's still your choice. Frankl saw in humans a force of overcoming that often remains asleep and only awakens when we are placed against the wall, when all that remains is to decide who we are going to be in the face of what we do not choose to live. This decision, however small, may be the turn. It may be the beginning of its reconstruction, of your real freedom, of your reunion with a meaning that no one can take. Because even when we have no control over the facts, we still have control over the meaning we give them. And this meaning can change everything. Viktor Frankl used to repeat Nietzsche's phrase, "Who has one why supports any like." This simple idea carries a power that can save lives, because in the midst of chaos, loss, pain, we don't need certainty, we need meaning. Frankl saw this with his own eyes. Men who had someone waiting for them, a wife, a son, a brother, they survived more. Men who had a work ending, a mission to fulfill, resisted more strongly. Even when the body no longer had energy, the soul supported. This is why the meaning is not a philosophical luxury. It is a psychological necessity. This is what holds our sanity on the darkest nights. But beware, it is not about seeking a great, heroic, recognized sense. Sometimes your why is discreet. It is taking care of someone. It is finishing something that started. It is to maintain your integrity when everything around it collapses. The important thing is not the size of your why. It's his truth to you, Frankl said. That meaning is not something we invented. It is something we discovered. It does not impose itself from the outside. He reveals himself when we are willing to listen to what life is asking us. and each has a different call, a unique purpose, which can change over time with phases, with losses. So when everything seems meaningless, do not despair for having no immediate answers. Turn to the essential question, what's my why now? Maybe he's in the little things, in a gesture of care, in a brave silence, in a step taken even with fear. Finding your why, it does not eliminate suffering, but it transforms it, gives him a direction, give you a place to continue. In the end, Viktor Frankl's biggest lesson may be this: the meaning of life is not something you think is ready, like a map buried on the floor. It's something you build, with choices, with falls, with resumptions, with presence. Life does not deliver clear answers. She delivers questions, and it's the way you answer these questions that reveals who you are. Frankl said that life expects something from us. It interrogates us every day. And as confused as the world is, for more matches, pains, or empty you have collected, life continues to ask, and now, what are you going to do with it? There is no great sense of life universal, but there is a meaning for your life right now. Even in pain, even in the crisis, even in doubt, you don't have to have everything clear. You don't have to feel that you are ready. But you need to be willing to face the day, willing to do something small but real, willing to be a little more honest with yourself, because the meaning does not appear as a radius illuminating everything. It springs in everyday life, in the courage to continue, in care with the other, in the silent firmness of those who choose not to give up. Frankl taught us that even in hell, it is possible to maintain dignity, and that, in the end, the true meaning is this: live so that, even in the face of the absurd, you remain human. If this video spoke to you, share. Leave here in the comments what touched you most. And if you are still looking for a meaning, don't give up. Sometimes what you need is not to find it. It is starting to live it. Subscribe to the channel, activates the bell, and follows us on this journey. We see each other in the next dive. Deeper, more human, more true. Life does not always make sense, and maybe never will do in the exact format we would like. But that does not mean that it is empty. It means she is all the time asking for participation. We are not here just to decipher the mystery. We are here to be part of it. And every choice, every silence, every beginning, it is a way of answering the question that life makes us. Viktor Frankl survived hell not because it was stronger, but because it decided that the pain would not have the last word. And this is the choice that is presented for each of us every day, giving life a meaning even when it looks without direction. Not a theoretical, perfect, unshakable meaning, but a lived meaning, meaning with the body, with the heart, with the soul. You do not need absolute answers. You need courage to continue seeking, humility to say, I don't know yet, but firmness to get up and follow anyway. Sometimes finding meaning is just that, to stay, breathe, try again. And if in the middle of this journey, this video was a company for you, I invite you to repay this current of meaning. Share this video with someone who needs a light. Comment here below. Which part did you touch you, or simply, what makes you continue even on the most difficult days? Like the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Here, we don't deliver ready answers, but it builds questions that really matter. We see each other in the next dive, and until then, may you find purpose, even in chaos, that you live, not just survive, and that day after day, you get closer of life that makes sense to you.